If you're thinking of going to one of these demonstrations at a capitol near you, don't. Come on now, my name is Bryan Preston, and we are in the midst of one of the worst moments in American history. I don't think that's an exaggeration in the least. We've had worse moments. Certainly the Civil War was a worse moment. Certainly, I mean, you could argue that the Bonus Army in 1932 that gathered around the Capitol and were chased by the U.S. Army off to their camps in Anacostia, and several were killed in the violence and melee. That would have been a worse moment in American history. Altamont could arguably be called a worse moment, but this is a terrible moment that we're in right now. Before I get going on the meat of what I want to say today, I want to play some video for you. It includes some very irresponsible rhetoric from a number of folks on the left, including Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi, AOC, and others. Roll tape.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
We need to occupy every airport. We need to occupy every border. We need to occupy every ICE office.
You cannot be civil with a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for, what you care about.
Would I like to debate this gentleman? And I said, no. I said, if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
You got to be ready to take a punch. You got to be ready to throw a punch.
You get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
Everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
Get up in the face of some Congress people.
With this kind of inspiration, I will go and take Trump out tonight.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you.
All of that rhetoric we just saw was irresponsible. It was irresponsible of Maxine Waters to exhort her followers to go and harass Republicans who were just trying to live their lives, but we did see that happen. We continue to see that happen. It was irresponsible of AOC to say that people have no choice but to riot when they in fact do have many other choices. AOC may be the most irresponsible member of our ruling class, and that's saying something with Nancy Pelosi and Eric Swalwell in charge of things. Swalwell, for instance, being on the House Intelligence Committee and being on the Articles of Impeachment Committee when he slept with a Chinese spy. These people have caused numerous problems. They bear a great deal of responsibility for the turmoil and the damage and the destruction and the death this nation has suffered over the past 6 months due to riots. That said, there are rumors out there that there will be demonstrations that could obviously turn violent at all 50 state capitals around January 17th and 18th and on Inauguration Day. If you are being told or being notified to go to one of these demonstrations, do not go. Either these things are being planned by fringe actors and they're being planned to be bad, fringe actors on the right, that is, or they're being planned by fringe actors on the left. Either way, if you're a mainstream conservative, a mainstream Republican, somebody who just cares about your country, that is not going to end well for you if you are there. We're already seeing evidence of this from the Capitol riot. Hundreds of thousands of people were there who did not take place in it, but suddenly they're finding themselves in jeopardy. Many of them are terrified that they're going to get fired from their jobs, they're going to get put on no-fly lists, that they're going to be ostracized, banned from social media, and have to figure out what they're going to do next for their livelihoods. The same could happen with these other demonstrations that are planned for January 17th and on Inauguration Day. Again, do not go. The bad actions of the Democrats that we've seen over the last 6 months do not excuse the bad actions of anyone else. And you can be sure you won't be treated fairly if you're there by the media. You won't be treated fairly by the Democrats. Any actions that take place that are violent, that turn bad, they will be used not just to crack down on you, they'll be used to crack down on the whole country and possibly jettison the Bill of Rights. Do not go.
I want to be very clear. I unequivocally condemn the violence that we saw last week. Violence and vandalism have absolutely no place in our country and no place in our movement. Making America great again has always been about defending the rule of law, supporting the men and women of law enforcement, and upholding our nation's most sacred traditions and values. Mob violence goes against everything I believe in and everything our movement stands for. No true supporter of mine could ever endorse political violence. No true supporter of mine could ever disrespect law enforcement or our great American flag. No true supporter of mine could ever threaten or harass their fellow Americans. If you do any of these things, you are not supporting our movement, you are attacking it, and you are attacking our country. Whether you are on the right or on the left, a Democrat or a Republican, there is never a justification for violence. No excuses, no exceptions. America is a nation of laws. Those who engaged in the attacks last week will be brought to justice. Now I am asking everyone who has ever believed in our agenda to be thinking of ways to ease tensions, calm tempers, and help to promote peace in our country. There has been reporting that additional demonstrations are being planned in the coming days, both here in Washington and across the country. I have been briefed by the U.S. Secret Service on the potential threats. Every American deserves to have their voice heard in a respectful and peaceful way. That is your First Amendment right. But I cannot emphasize that there must be no violence, no law-breaking, and no vandalism of any kind. Everyone must follow our laws and obey the instructions of law enforcement.
In this country, we have lost a very simple idea, a very simple thought that we used to be raised to understand, and it used to be just part of our upbringing, almost to the point of our DNA. And that thing is, two wrongs don't make a right. If the other side does something wrong, they lie about you, they turn violent, they start a riot, that does not mean that you should reciprocate. That does not mean their wrong action justifies your wrong action. Again, do not go. This is a terrible moment for our country. These demonstrations that are planned will make it worse. Now, here's an idea. On Inauguration Day, if you don't support Joe Biden as president, and I don't, then don't watch Inauguration. Just don't watch. It's not going to be much of a show anyway, and whether you're watching or not, he's going to be installed. But if you're not watching, the ratings might be lower, and that might be just yet one more signal that, he's, not all that popular, and he doesn't come into office with a mandate, and anything he does, there is legitimate grounds to stop it in the legal ways, through Congress and through the states. One last thought before we go. If you've given up because of what you've seen over the last few weeks, a couple of months, really, that's a tempting thing. I mean, we've seen riots, we've seen violence, and we've seen a media and the Democrats just seem to grow in strength from it. But actually, they didn't. And at the state level, they lost a great deal of power in what will be a redistricting year. This matters a lot. For instance, Texas and Florida will control their redistricting destiny. Their legislatures either are meeting or will be meeting soon, and you know that election reform in those states is going to be front and center. I would say that that's probably the case in states like Georgia and Pennsylvania and some others too, where Republicans do control the legislatures. They don't have trifectas in some of those, but they do control the legislatures. They're going to take a long, hard look at what happened in the 2020 election, and I think they'll come up with some remedies for it. In the meantime, I think the states may have a role for pushing back against the tech giants. I've been looking into this. Poland, for instance, has come up with a bill to start fining Facebook and Twitter and social media giants if they violate a Poland citizen's civil rights to free speech. Could the states do that? I don't know the answer to that. I suspect there may be some states who pass some bills just to try, to see if they can, to put that on the table. And in the meantime, here's two more final thoughts that should make you happy. One of those, the CNN Airport Network, has gone away. After 31 years of nobody paying much attention to them, even the captive audience that was in our airports, they're not doing that anymore. So that's a great outcome. Those TVs can go dark. They can show nothing. They can take those TVs out of the airports because we all have smartphones. Whatever they do, the airports are going to be better places because CNN's not there. One final happy thought, the social media giants, they seem to think they're countries now, but they are still bound by the forces of the private market. And after the big social media giants started weighing in and taking down people's free speech rights, they've lost about $51 billion in value at last count. Now, that's still couch cushion money for them, but before long, if these drops keep happening, if they keep going on, they're going to notice, and they might figure out that there's half of the country that's really unhappy with how they're behaving and is not happy at all with their power. There is a case on the books called Marsh versus Alabama, which I wrote about earlier this week. Take a look at that post if you can. It's in VIP. You can use my code Preston to get a discount if you want. But that case might be relevant. That case actually looks at how a company becomes so powerful that it essentially owns the public square, and then what responsibilities it has when it takes on that power. So don't give up. Please, come on now. My name is Bryan Preston.